Take a deep breath. Close your eyes. Imagine the weight of the day falling away, replaced by the heavy, humid air of a world millions of years older than memory. Before the mountains were formed, before the birds sang in the trees, there was the silence of Pangea, a vast red earth, quiet, waiting. We are traveling back past the centuries, past the ice ages, to a time when the world was one single, immense continent. It is a warm evening. The sun is a pale orange orb hanging over a horizon of endless dunes. The ground beneath you is dry, a fine, rust-colored dust that has not tasted water in 1,000 years. But the air is changing. Can you feel it? A subtle shift in the pressure, a coolness beginning to bloom in the heat. Far off over the horizon of the Panthalassic Ocean, the sky is no longer blue. It is a deep, bruised purple. The clouds are heavy. They are miles thick, laden with the moisture of a warming planet. They move slowly, rolling over the land like a soft, dark blanket. Listen. The first sound is a single drop. It falls from a height of 10,000 feet, tumbling through the warm air, growing heavy until it strikes a dry, flat stone. Tock, and then another. Tock. A rhythmic, steady pulse begins. The dust of Pangea begins to darken. The smell of the earth, that deep, metallic scent of dry soil meeting water, fills the air. It is the smell of a world waking up. It is a rain that will not stop. Not tonight, not tomorrow, not in your lifetime. It is a rain that will last for 2 million years. The water does not just fall, it flows. For thousands of years, the dry riverbeds of Pangea were nothing more than scars in the sand, bone-dry valleys where the wind whispered through the dust. But now, they are finding their purpose again. Imagine the sound of a distant murmur. It is the sound of water finding its way home. At first, it is a trickle, a thin silver thread weaving between the sun-baked stones. It moves slowly, soaking into the parched earth, turning the red clay into a soft, dark mud. As the rain continues day after day, year after year, the trickle becomes a stream. The stream becomes a creek, and the creek becomes a river. The river is a slow, heavy pulse. It does not rush like a mountain torrent. It moves with a deliberate, ancient patience. It carries the weight of the continent within its currents. It carries the red silt of the deserts and the gray ash from the volcanoes in the far north. The water is deep and cool. If you were to stand at the bank, you would hear the soft, rhythmic lapping of waves against the muddy shore. Squelch, splash, squelch. The river is widening, reaching out its fingers to touch the lowlands. It spills over the banks, creating vast, shallow floodplains that stretch as far as the eye can see. These are the first wetlands. The water here is still. It is a mirror for the gray clouds above. Thousands of square miles of shallow water, only inches deep, reflecting the soft light of a world without a sun. Beneath the surface of these new lakes, the world is waking up. The seeds of ancient plants which have slept for centuries in the dry dirt feel the touch of the moisture. They begin to swell. They begin to crack. Small green shoots reach upward through the silt, seeking the dim light. Around the edges of the water, the horsetails begin to grow. They look like green pipes, ribbed and hollow, standing in perfect rows. The rain strikes the hollow stems, creating a sound like a soft drum. 1,000,000 tiny drums, playing a song of growth and life. The air above the wetlands is thick and heavy. It is filled with a fine silver mist that never truly clears. The mist muffles everything. It turns the world into a quiet, private chamber. You can hear the bubbles of oxygen rising from the mud, popping softly at the surface. Blub, blub. In the deep parts of the river, the water moves in slow, rotating eddies. It swirls around the trunks of fallen trees that have been washed down from the uplands. These logs become islands for the small creatures of the Triassic. A tiny, lizard-like animal rests on a floating branch, its eyes half closed, feeling the gentle vibration of the water beneath it. It is a world of constant motion, but it is a motion so slow that it feels like stillness. The river is a traveler. It flows for thousands of miles, crossing the heart of the supercontinent, heading toward the infinite blue of the Panthalassic Ocean. It carries the lifeblood of the planet. Every drop of rain that falls on the mountains eventually finds its way here, into the slow, brown road of the river. Think of the time it takes for a single grain of sand to travel from the center of Pangea to the sea. It may take 100 years. It may take 1,000. The river does not mind. The rain is still falling. The clouds are still full. There is plenty of time. The sound of the river is a low hum, a bass note that vibrates in the chest. It is the sound of the earth's veins filling up. It is the sound of the great drought ending. It is a sound that will continue unbroken for 20,000 centuries. Listen to the water. Let the rhythm of the rising tide pull you deeper into the dream. The banks are soft. The water is warm. The rain is a curtain that hides you from the rest of the universe. There is only the flow. There is only the rise. There is only the rain. As the rivers flow into the distance, they eventually reach the edge of the world. They pour their heavy, silt-laden waters into the Panthalassa, the one great ocean that surrounds the globe. This section focuses on the deep, dark sea and the hypnotic change occurring beneath the waves. The transition from the land to the sea is a slow, gradual fatting of colors. The brown, sediment-rich water of the rivers meets the salt-heavy blue of the deep ocean. Where they meet, the water churns in slow, lazy spirals, mixing the nutrients of the earth with the mysteries of the deep. Imagine the surface of the ocean. It is an endless expanse of gray-blue glass, stretching thousands of miles in every direction. There are no islands here to break the wind, no shores to stop the tide. But the wind has died down. The air is heavy and still, and the rain falls here too. The sound of the rain on the open ocean is different than the sound on the leaves of the forest. Here, it is a vast, hollow hiss. Millions of drops striking the surface of the water simultaneously, creating a layer of fresh water that sits like a thin, cool skin on top of the salt. If you were to sink beneath the surface, the sound would change instantly. The hiss of the rain becomes a distant, muffled hum. The world becomes a deep twilight blue. Everything is silent. Everything is weightless. As you descend, the light from the surface begins to fade. The gray clouds above are forgotten, replaced by a soft, glowing darkness. In this era, the oceans are warming. The volcanoes of the north have breathed so much heat into the sky that the water feels like a warm bath. Listen to the heartbeat of the deep. There is a low-frequency pulse, the sound of the great ocean currents moving like giant, invisible snakes across the seafloor. These currents carry the heat from the equator to the poles, a slow and steady circulation that keeps the planet in a state of constant, humid warmth. The sea creatures of this time move with a rhythmic grace. Far below, the ammonites, creatures with beautiful coiled shells like spiral galaxies, drift through the water column. They do not swim with effort. They simply float, rising and falling with the pressure of the tide. Their tentacles trail behind them like silk ribbons, catching the tiny particles of life that the rain has washed down from the land. The seafloor is a landscape of soft, white ooze. It has been accumulating for millions of years, a graveyard of tiny shells and volcanic ash. As the rain continues for century after century, the chemistry of this water begins to shift. The ocean is becoming more acidic. The shells of the creatures are softening, dissolving back into the water, turning the deep into a thick chemical soup. This is the great transformation. The old world of the sea is fading away, and a new one is being born. Imagine the silence of a trench 5 miles deep. There is no rain here. There is no wind. There is only the immense, comforting pressure of the water. It is a weight that holds everything in place, a darkness that feels like a thick blanket. The water down here hasn't seen the sun in 1,000 years. It is cold, still, and eternal. Up on the surface, the rain continues its relentless work. It falls on the backs of the ichthyosaurs, the great sea reptiles that look like dolphins but belong to the Age of Giants. They break the surface to take a single, deep breath of the wet air, feeling the raindrops on their skin before diving back into the silent blue. The ocean is a giant lung, inhaling the carbon from the atmosphere and exhaling the life of the future. The 2 million years of rain are filling the basins, shifting the salt, and rewriting the DNA of the creatures within. Everything is liquid. Everything is flowing. The boundaries between the sky, the land, and the sea have blurred into a single gray dream. You are drifting now, far from the shore, cradled by the swells of the Panthalassa. The waves are long and slow, rocking you with the rhythm of a planet that has finally found its peace. The rain is the bridge between the world above and the world below. It is the thread that connects the mountain to the abyss. And as you float in the deep, dark blue, the sound of the surface becomes nothing more than a memory, a soft, white noise that lulls you into the deepest part of the Earth's history. 20,000 centuries of water, 20,000 centuries of salt. The ocean is waiting, the rain is falling, the world is asleep. Before the first drop of rain could fall, the Earth had to breathe out its heat. We travel now to the far reaches of the world, to a place where the crust of the planet grew thin and tired. This is the Wrangellia pulse, the beginning of the great change. Imagine a landscape of black stone. It is a world of basalt, a dark and heavy rock that holds the heat of the interior. Here, the ground does not simply sit still, it heaves. It groans with the weight of the fires beneath it. There are no explosive peaks here, no mountain tops blowing into the sky. Instead, there are the fissures, long, glowing cracks in the earth that stretch for miles. From these cracks, the blood of the earth spills out. It is lava, but it does not rush. It moves like thick, glowing honey. It is a deep, pulsing red, the color of a dying ember in a fireplace. Listen to the sound of the earth opening. It is a low, guttural growl, a sound so deep you feel it in your bones rather than hearing it with your ears. The lava flows slowly, rolling over itself, creating a rhythmic crunching sound as the surface cools into a black crust and then breaks again to reveal the fire within. Crunch, hiss, crunch. As the lava meets the ancient air, it releases its breath. It is a breath made of carbon, a heavy and invisible gas that rises in shimmering waves of heat. Think of the heat haze on a long, straight road in the summer. Now imagine that haze covering an entire continent. The sky above the fissures is not blue, it is a hazy, metallic bronze. The heat is a physical weight. It pushes down on the land, silent and shimmering. This is the engine of the rain. The volcanoes are pumping millions of tons of carbon into the atmosphere, day after day, year after year, for centuries. The planet is catching a fever. The warmth spreads from the black rocks of Wrangellia across the great plains of Pangea. It reaches the oceans, turning the cool blue waters into a giant steaming cauldron. The moisture begins to rise. It hitches a ride on the heat waves, climbing higher and higher into the sky, gathering its strength. Everything is slow. The lava flows might take 100 years to cover a single valley. The carbon might take 1,000 years to change the color of the sky. There is no hurry in the deep time of the earth. Watch the glow of the fissures in the twilight. It is a comforting, rhythmic light. The red pulses, dimming and brightening, dimming and brightening. It is the heartbeat of a world in transition. The black basalt is a cradle, and the fire within is the warmth that will eventually bring the green life to the rest of Pangea. The air is becoming thick. It is getting harder for the heat to escape back into space. The carbon forms a blanket, a soft and heavy layer that wraps around the world. Beneath this blanket, the moisture begins to huddle together. The first clouds are forming, not the white, fluffy clouds of a spring day, but massive, towering giants of gray and purple, fueled by the volcanic breath of the earth. The fire and the water are beginning their dance. The lava provides the heat, and the ocean provides the steam. They are working together to break the great drought. Can you feel the stillness before the storm? The lava has stopped its forward crawl for a moment. The air is perfectly quiet. The bronze sky is darkening, the heat is at its peak, and then, miles above the glowing red cracks, the first microscopic crystal of water forms around a grain of volcanic ash. It is a marriage of fire and ice. The ash from the deep earth becomes the heart of a raindrop. The heat of the volcanoes will stay for a long time. They will continue to pulse, to bleed their red light into the dark for thousands of years. But the sky can no longer hold the weight. The balance has shifted. The fire has done its work, and now the water must take over. The glow of the lava is reflected in the first falling drops. For a brief moment, the rain looks like sparks falling from the sky. But as the water hits the hot stone, it turns to steam, creating a vast, white curtain of mist that hides the fire from view. The fire is still there, deep below, keeping the world warm, keeping the cycle moving. But the age of the rain has begun. Listen to the hiss of the water on the warm, black rock. SSSSSHHHH. It is the sound of the earth cooling its fever. It is the sound of the long sleep beginning. The world is turning green. For millions of years, the center of Pangea was a palette of browns, reds, and oranges. It was a world of scorched earth and resilient, scrubby plants that clung to life in the cracks of dry canyons. But as the rain falls, decade after decade, the colors begin to bleed into one another. The rust of the desert is being painted over by the deep, wet emerald of the new forest. Imagine the smell of this transition. It is the scent of a greenhouse in the middle of a summer afternoon. It is the smell of life in its most aggressive, abundant form. The moisture has unlocked the potential of the soil, and the earth is responding with a silent, green explosion. The first to arrive are the mosses and the liverworts. They move like a slow, green tide, creeping over the black volcanic rocks and the red sand dunes. They don't have roots. They simply soak up the water through their skin, growing thicker and softer every day. If you were to walk across this new world, your footsteps would be silent. The ground has become a cushion, a plush carpet of life that drinks the sound of the rain. Then come the ferns. These are not the small plants you might see in a garden today. These are the giant seed ferns with fronds as long as a man is tall. They unfurl slowly like green ribbons reaching for the misty sky. Listen to the sound of 1,000 ferns catching the rain. It is a soft, rhythmic patter, a liquid applause that fills the air. The water collects in the center of the plant, forming a tiny pool, before spilling over the edge and watering the moss below. But the true masters of this new world are the conifers, the ancestors of the pine, the cedar, and the redwood. They rise from the mud like great wooden pillars. Their bark is thick and rough, smelling of resin and ancient earth. They do not have flowers, they have cones, heavy and brown, hanging from branches that groan under the weight of the water. Imagine standing in the center of a grove of these ancient trees. The canopy is so thick that the rain doesn't hit you directly. Instead, it reaches you as a fine, cool mist. The light here is dim and green, filtered through a million needles. It is a cathedral of wood and water. The sound here is different. It is a deep, muffled sigh. The wind moves through the tops of the trees, a mile above the forest floor, making the branches sway in a slow, hypnotic dance. Creak, groan, sigh. The trees are talking to the wind, sharing the news of the rain. Beneath the trees, the cycle of life is accelerating. The fallen needles and dead ferns don't dry up and blow away as they used to. Now they rot. They sink into the mud, turning into a rich, black peat. This is the foundation of the future. The forest is building itself, layer by layer, creating a deep, dark soil that will nourish life for millions of years to his come. The animals of the forest have changed their habits. The dry-skinned reptiles of the desert have retreated, replaced by creatures that love the damp. You might see a small, ancestral amphibian sitting on a rotting log. Its skin is slick and shiny, reflecting the green light. It sits perfectly still, its throat pulsing slowly as it breathes the heavy, wet air. It is waiting for a dragonfly, a giant of the air with wings like stained glass, to flutter past through the mist. The forest is a place of infinite shadow. Even in the middle of the day, it feels like twilight. The clouds are always there, a permanent ceiling of slate and charcoal. The sun is a myth, a memory from a time when the world was dry. In this new world, the only light comes from the bioluminescence of fungi growing on the damp bark, or the occasional flash of a distant volcano reflecting off the wet leaves. This is the great greening. The rain has taken the barren heart of the continent and turned it into a lung. The trees are breathing out oxygen, filling the atmosphere with the fuel of the future. The forests are stretching their limbs, spreading further and further across the land, following the path of the rain. Think of the patience of a tree. It stands in the rain for 500 years, growing an inch at a time, its roots reaching deep into the warm, wet mud. It does not hurry. It knows the rain will be there tomorrow. It knows the rain will be there for 1,000 years. The forest is a sanctuary of sound. The hiss of the rain, the creak of the wood, the soft pop of a bubble in the mud, and the distant, rhythmic thud of a falling cone. All of these sounds weave together into a single, seamless garment of noise. It is a blanket that covers the world, keeping it warm, keeping it safe, keeping it asleep. As the rain continues to fall, the forest grows taller, darker, and more silent. The world is being consumed by the green, and you are here, at the foot of an ancient conifer, listening to the water travel from the sky to the leaf, from the leaf to the moss, and from the moss into the deep, dark earth. The rain is the gardener of Pangea, and its work has only just begun. In the vast, cathedral-like spaces of the new green world, life is not just measured by the giants. While the massive conifers reach for the clouds and the great rivers carve the earth, a much smaller world is thriving in the shadows. This is the story of the smallest survivors, the tiny architects of the forest floor who spend their entire lives within the sound of a single dripping branch. Imagine the hollow of an ancient, fallen tree. The wood is soft and damp, beginning to turn back into the earth from which it came. Inside this dark, wooden cave, the air is still and warm. It smells of mulch and sweet decay. This is a sanctuary. Here, tucked into a bed of dry wood shavings and soft moss, is one of the earliest ancestors of the world you know. It is a tiny creature, no larger than a thumb, with fur as soft as velvet and eyes like black beads. It is a cynodont, a bridge between the old reptiles and the mammals that are yet to come. Listen to its breathing. It is a fast, rhythmic flutter, a tiny engine of life in the heart of the storm. The little creature is curled into a tight ball, its long tail tucked over its nose to keep in the heat. It is asleep, but its ears are never truly closed. They twitch at every sound, the heavy thud of a raindrop hitting a leaf outside, the scuttle of a beetle in the bark, the distant groan of the shifting forest. To this creature, a single rainstorm is a lifetime. A week of rain is an eternity. It does not know that this rain has been falling for 1,000 years before it was born, or that it will fall for 1,000 years after it is gone. To the small survivors, the rain is simply the background music of existence. It is the hum of the universe. Outside the hollow, the insects are the true owners of the damp. The rain has created a world of liquid obstacles. To a beetle with a shell of polished obsidian, a single raindrop is a falling boulder. It moves with a slow, mechanical precision, its legs clicking against the wet wood. Click, pause, click. It finds shelter under the broad canopy of a mushroom. The mushroom is a pale, ghostly white, standing tall on a stalk of fibrous silk. As the rain strikes the top of the mushroom cap, it makes a hollow, drum-like sound. Tong, tong, tong. The beetle waits in the dry shadow of the fungi, its antennae waving slowly in the humid air, sensing the vibration of the world. The dragonflies of this era are giants, with wingspans that cut through the mist like serrated glass. But even they must rest. They cling to the undersides of heavy ferns, their wings folded, waiting for the brief moments when the downpour thins to a light drizzle. When they move, the vibration of their wings creates a low, electrical buzz that cuts through the hiss of the water, a sudden, sharp note in a long, low song. Down in the leaf litter, the worms and the millipedes are busy. They are the silent workers of the deep time. They move through the mud, aerating the soil, turning the fallen debris of the forest into the fuel for the next generation of trees. Their movement is a soft, wet slither, a sound so faint it can only be heard in the absolute silence of the forest night. The small survivors are the keepers of the secrets. They see the world from the ground up. They see the way the water pools in the footprints of the early dinosaurs, creating tiny, temporary oceans for the larvae of the first flies. They see the way the moss colonizes a single pebble, covering it in a velvet coat over the course of a decade. There is a profound peace in the lives of these small things. They do not worry about the changing climate or the shifting continents. They find a dry crevice, a soft patch of moss, or a hollow reed, and they simply exist. They are the heartbeat in the shadows. Imagine the perspective of a tiny snail moving across a wet stone. The stone is a mountain. The moss is a jungle. The silver trail the snail leaves behind is a road through history. It moves at a pace that makes the rain seem fast. To the snail, the 2 million years of rain is not a disaster or a geological event. It is simply the way the world is. It is a world of moisture, of easy travel, and of endless, refreshing water. As the night deepens, the forest becomes a chorus of tiny sounds. The croak of a primitive frog in a distant pool, the rustle of a small mammal moving through the ferns, the clicking of insect wings. All of these sounds are cradled within the much larger sound of the rain. The rain is the great equalizer. It falls on the head of the largest dinosaur and the wing of the smallest gnat. It provides for all of them. It fills the hollows where the little ones hide, and it grows the plants that keep them fed. In the hollow of the tree, the tiny cynodont shifts in its sleep. It feels the dampness in the air and settles deeper into its bed. It is safe. It is tucked away in the folds of time. Outside, the great storm continues its long, slow work, but in here, there is only the warmth of the nest and the steady, rhythmic pulse of the water on the wood. The small survivors are dreaming of a world that will one day be theirs, but for now, they are content to listen, to wait, to sleep. The rain is their lullaby, the earth is their bed, and the time is infinite. As the water continues its journey across the vast expanse of Pangea, it eventually reaches the edge of the continent. This is the place where the earth dissolves into the ocean, the Great Delta. It is a world made of silver water, brown earth, and emerald shadows, a labyrinth of islands that shifts with every tide and every storm. The air here is different. It is heavy with the scent of salt and the rich, dark aroma of the deep mud. The mist is thicker here than in the mountains. It hangs over the water like a white curtain, blurring the line between the sky and the sea. If you were drifting in a small wooden boat, you would feel as if you were floating in a cloud. Everything is soft. Everything is muted. Listen to the sound of the delta. It is a symphony of liquid. There is the slow, deep wash of the ocean tide coming in, meeting the steady, pushing current of the river coming out. They collide in a series of low, rhythmic gurgles. The water swirls in great, lazy circles, creating small whirlpools that hiss softly as they spin. Around you, the first mangroves of the ancient world are taking hold. Their roots are like long, spindly fingers reaching down into the warm silt. They look like trees walking on the water. As the tide rises, the water creeps up the roots, making a tiny licking sound. Lap, lap, lap. When the tide goes out, the water drains away, leaving the mud to glisten in the gray light. The delta is a place of endless patience. The silt that the rain washed off the mountains 1,000 miles away finally settles here. It falls through the water like a slow brown snow, building the islands inch by inch. Over centuries, a sandbar becomes a bank. A bank becomes an island. An island becomes a forest. The earth is growing, reaching out into the sea, fueled by the relentless rain. In the shallow channels between the islands, the water is as still as a mirror. The surface is broken only by the occasional raindrop, creating a perfect circle that expands until it touches the muddy shore. Or perhaps a lungfish rises to the surface, breaking the water with a soft, wet pop to take a gulp of the humid air before sinking back into the dark. There are no crashing waves here. The great Panthalassic Ocean is so vast that its energy is spent long before it reaches these winding channels. Instead, there is only a slow, heaving motion, the breath of the sea. The water rises and falls a few feet every several hours, a slow and steady heartbeat that dictates the life of everything here. The creatures of the delta are masters of the edge. You might see a phytosaur, a long-bodied reptile that looks like a crocodile, drifting like a log in the tea-colored water. Its eyes and nostrils are just above the surface. It does not move. It does not hunt. It simply exists within the flow. The rain falls on its pebbled skin, the drops running off its back and returning to the river. It is part of the landscape, as still as the trees, as patient as the tide. As night falls over the delta, the sound of the rain becomes the only map. You cannot see where the land ends and the water begins, but you can hear it. The rain sounds sharp on the broad leaves of the riverside plants. It sounds flat and heavy on the open mudflats. It sounds hollow and metallic on the deep channels of the river. Imagine the darkness here. It is a liquid blackness. The only light is the faint, bioluminescent glow of the plankton in the water, disturbed by the falling rain. Every drop creates a tiny spark of cold, blue light, so that the entire surface of the delta looks like a field of fallen stars. It is a world of transitions. Nothing is permanent. An island that exists today may be washed away by a flood tomorrow, only to be rebuilt a mile downstream a century later. The rain provides the material, the river provides the transport, and the sea provides the space. This is where the continent of Pangea gives itself up to the ocean. It is a slow, graceful surrender. The 2 million years of rain are melting the land, grain by grain, and pouring it into the blue abyss. You are floating now, caught in one of the slow-moving eddies of the outer delta. The water is warm and supportive. The sound of the world is a gentle, watery hum. The mist closes in around you, a soft, damp embrace that shuts out the wind and the cold. The tide is coming in now. The water is rising, lifting the roots of the trees, filling the secret channels and smoothing over the footprints in the mud. The world is being reset. The world is being made new. The rain continues to fall, a steady, shimmering veil between you and the rest of time. There is no shore. There is no horizon. There is only the rhythm of the water meeting the water. Sleep now in the cradle of the delta. Let the tide carry your thoughts out to the deep sea. The rain will still be here when the sun eventually finds its way back to the sky. But for now, there is only the gray, the green, and the endless flow. We move now from the heavy, salt-scented air of the sea to the highest points of the world. These are the ancestral peaks of Pangea, the great mountain ranges that stood long before the Alps or the Rockies were born. At these heights, the 2 million-year rain takes on a different form. It is a world of white silence, of jagged stone, and of the slow, crushing power of ice. Imagine the air here. It is thin and sharp. The warmth of the lowlands cannot reach these altitudes. Up here, the great clouds, those dark charcoal giants, collide with the frozen walls of the world. As they hit the peaks, the rain does not fall as liquid. It falls as snow. Listen to the sound of a mountain snowfall. It is the quietest sound in nature. A soft, microscopic hiss as billions of frozen crystals settle on the dark rock. There is no wind here to blow the snow into drifts. The air is too heavy with moisture. Instead, the snow falls straight down, layer upon layer, hour after hour. This is the beginning of the great rivers. Every drop of water that we saw in the delta and the forest started its journey here, in the freezing silence of the peaks. The mountains are made of granite and glass-like quartz. They are cold and indifferent to the passage of time. As the snow accumulates, it begins to pack down. The weight of the new snow crushes the layers beneath it, turning the white powder into clear, blue ice. Over centuries, this ice begins to move. This is the glacier, a river of ice moving so slowly that to the human eye it is standing still. But it has a sound. If you press your ear to the cold stone, you can hear it. It is a deep, tectonic groan. It is the sound of the mountain being ground into powder. Krieg. The ice is heavy. It carves deep U-shaped valleys into the heart of the range. It carries boulders the size of houses as if they were pebbles. This is the grinding wheel of the planet. While the rain in the valleys is soft and life-giving, the ice in the mountains is a sculptor of stone. But even here, the volcanic heat of the era is felt. From deep within the mountain's roots, the warmth of the earth rises. The bottom layer of the glacier begins to weep. A tiny stream of crystal-clear water begins to flow from beneath the blue ice. It is the purest water on Earth, filtered through miles of frozen time. The stream is small at first. It dances over the rocks, singing a high-pitched, tinkling song. Tinkle, splash, plink. It is the sound of glass breaking on glass. As it moves down the mountain, it joins other streams, each one born from a different glacier, each one carrying the cold memory of the peaks. Imagine the mist at the timberline, where the ice meets the first stunted trees. The air is a battleground between the cold of the heights and the humid warmth of the lowlands. The clouds hang low, snagged on the jagged teeth of the mountains. The rain here is a freezing drizzle, turning the rocks into slick black mirrors. Everything is sharp. The edges of the stones, the needles of the frost-hardy plants, the bite of the air. But as you follow the water downward, the world begins to soften. The sharp tinkling of the mountain stream turns into the rhythmic splashing of a waterfall. The water leaps from a high ledge, falling hundreds of feet through the misty air. It looks like a ribbon of silver silk. As it hits the pool below, it creates a deep, resonant boom. A sound that echoes off the canyon walls, a steady, thunderous pulse that has not stopped for 1,000,000 years. This is the breath of the mountain. The snow falls, the ice melts, and the water begins its long, slow descent toward the sea. Up here, the silence is absolute. There are no insects to buzz, no dinosaurs to roar. There is only the wind, the ice, and the water. The mountains are the watchers. They stand in the gray light, their heads hidden in the clouds, patiently gathering the moisture of the sky and feeding it to the world below. Think of the age of these stones. They have seen the earth when it was a desert of fire, and now they see it as a world of water. They do not care. They simply hold the weight of the ice. Close your eyes and feel the cold, clean air of the peaks. Listen to the drip of the melting glacier. Drip, drip, drip. It is the sound of time itself eroding the world, one grain of sand at a time. The mountain is tall, but the water is persistent. In 2,000,000 years, even the highest peak will be humbled by the rain. But for now, the mountains are the kings of Pangea. They are the source. They are the keepers of the cold. As the mist settles over the glaciers, the white world fades into a soft, gray dream. The ice is still. The water is flowing. The mountains are asleep beneath their blanket of snow. And the rain, the eternal rain, continues to fall. Beneath the surface of the green forests and the rushing rivers, the rain is performing a hidden miracle. For thousands of centuries, the water has been seeping into the earth, searching for the smallest cracks in the limestone. This is the world of the Cave of Echoes, a place where the 2,000,000-year rain becomes a slow, rhythmic architect of stone. Imagine leaving the sound of the storm behind as you slip into a narrow opening in the rock. As you descend, the heavy humidity of the surface gives way to a cool, constant stillness. The air here is perfectly steady. It smells of wet minerals and cold, ancient earth. In the darkness of the cave, time moves differently. On the surface, the rain is a constant hiss, but down here, it is a single, deliberate note. Listen. Somewhere in the vast, black cathedral of the cavern, a single drop of water loses its grip on the ceiling. It falls through the darkness, landing in a pool of water as clear as glass. Plink. The sound echoes off the walls, traveling through the stalactites and the hidden galleries. The echo is soft and long, fading into the silence like a memory. A minute passes. Then another drop falls. Plink. This is the sound of the earth breathing. Every drop of water that falls here has traveled through hundreds of feet of solid rock. It has been filtered by the mountain, purified by the stone, and enriched with the minerals of the Triassic. As each drop falls, it leaves behind a microscopic trace of calcite. Over 1,000 years, those traces become a tiny white tip on the ceiling. Over 10,000 years, they become a stone icicle. Over 1,000,000 years, they become a pillar that holds up the heart of the world. Think of the patience required to build a world out of single drops of water. The cave does not know what a storm is. It only knows the drip. Drip, drip, drip. If you were to sit in the center of this cavern, you would feel a peace that is deeper than sleep. There is no wind here. There is no sun. There is only the rhythm of the water. The cave is a womb of stone, protected from the changes of the surface. On the floor of the cave, the water has carved out shallow basins. These pools are as still as ice. If you look closely at the edges, you can see the cave pearls, perfectly round, polished spheres of stone created by the constant agitation of the falling water. They are the jewels of the dark, hidden away where no eye will ever see them. The only life here is silent and pale. Small, translucent creatures move through the pools, their bodies as clear as the water itself. They have no eyes, for there is no light to see. They feel the world through the vibrations of the drops hitting the surface. To them, the plink of a raindrop is a signal that the world above is still there, that the great cycle of the water is still turning. Occasionally, far off in the deeper tunnels, you might hear a low, hollow boom. It is the sound of an underground river, a secret vein of the planet carrying the runoff from the mountains through the dark. It flows with a steady, muffled roar, like the sound of the ocean heard through a seashell. It is a reminder that even in the deepest part of the earth, the rain is the master. The cave is a library of time. Every layer of stone, every stalactite, every pool of water is a record of the 2,000,000 years of rain. While the forests above grow and die and the dinosaurs evolve and pass away, the cave remains. It grows in the dark, one drop at a time, building its monuments to the water. Imagine the darkness closing in around you like a soft, heavy velvet. It is not a frightening dark, it is a protective one. The weight of the world above is a comfort. You are held in the hands of the earth. The sound of the water is your heartbeat. Plink, plink, plink. The water is the sculptor, the stone is the clay, and the time is endless. As you drift into the deepest part of the dream, the echoes of the cave grow softer. The sound of the falling drops becomes a rhythm that matches your own breath. You are becoming part of the stone. You are becoming part of the water. The rain will fall on the mountains. The mountains will feed the cave, and the cave will hold the secret of the storm for all eternity. Sleep now in the heart of the limestone. Let the water build its cathedrals around you. The world above is a blur of green and gray, but down here, there is only the silver note of the drop hitting the pool. The long rain continues. The earth is patient, and you are perfectly still. The 1,000,000th year has passed, and then the second 1,000,000th year begins to fade. The earth is tired of the water. The great engine of the Wrangellia volcanoes has begun to quiet. The fissures that once bled glowing red light are now capped with cold, black basalt, covered in a mile of moss and ancient silt. The fire is receding. The fever is breaking. Imagine the sound of the world as the rain begins to lose its weight. For 2,000,000 years, the sound was a heavy, constant drumming. But now the rhythm is changing. It is becoming lighter, more delicate. The clouds, once miles thick and dark as charcoal, are starting to break apart into smaller, softer shapes. The permanent gray vault of the sky is being replaced by patches of pale, watery blue. It is a color the earth has not seen in 20,000 centuries. Listen to the silence that begins to grow in the gaps between the showers. The transition is not sudden. It takes thousands of years for the world to dry out. It begins with the wind. For an age, the air was heavy, humid, and still. Now a new wind is blowing from the interior of the continent. It is a dry wind. It carries the scent of dust and stone. As it moves through the giant conifer forests, it whisks away the moisture from the leaves. The forests themselves are changing. The giant ferns which thrived in the endless mud are beginning to brown at the edges. They are giving way to new life. The conifers, the pines, the cycads, and the ginkgos are deepening their roots. They are learning to store the water within their bark, preparing for a future where the rain is a guest rather than a permanent resident. The great rivers, which once overflowed their banks to create vast wetlands, are retreating into their channels. The floodplains are drying, leaving behind deep layers of rich, black soil. This soil is the legacy of the rain. It is the most fertile earth the planet has ever known. In the mud of these retreating rivers, the footprints of the dinosaurs are hardening. The early ancestors, the Herosaurus and the Aeoraptor, are walking further now. They are moving out of the shadows of the forests and onto the new, open plains. Their heavy, rhythmic footsteps are no longer muffled by the splash of water. They crunch on the drying earth. Crunch, step, crunch. The dinosaurs have won the long game of the rain. Their skin, tough and watertight, is perfect for the drying world. Their lungs, efficient and strong, breathe the new, oxygen-rich air that the 2 million years of forest growth has provided. They are the heirs of the deluge. They look out over the changing horizon with amber eyes, ready to claim a world that is finally becoming firm beneath their feet. The Great Delta is shrinking. The salt of the Panthalassa is reclaiming the coastlines. The sea level is falling as the moisture is locked away in the new forests and the deep aquifers. The air is becoming crisp. The smell of the ocean is no longer a heavy, oppressive mist. It is a sharp, refreshing spray that travels on the breeze. Think of the last cloud of the Carnian Pluvial episode. It is a small, wispy thing, trailing behind a great weather system that is heading toward the poles. It releases a few final drops. Drip, drip, drip. The sound is lonely. It is the final note of a 2 million-year symphony. As that last drop strikes a sun-warmed stone, it does not soak in. It evaporates. It rises into a sky that is now clear, bright, and vast. The sun is no longer a myth. It is a golden king. It sits high in the sky, baking the mud into stone, turning the green world into a mosaic of gold and emerald. The shadows are sharp and long. The world has depth again. But the memory of the rain is everywhere. It is in the shape of every valley. It is in the rings of the ancient trees. It is in the very bones of the creatures that now walk the earth. The rain did not just wash the world, it remade it. It took a barren, desert planet and turned it into a lush, breathing paradise. The long sleep of the earth is ending, but your sleep is just beginning. Imagine the world now as it settles into the mid-Triassic. The nights are cool and dry. The stars are visible, millions of tiny, cold fires burning in the blackness. There is no hiss of rain to drown out the silence. There is only the soft, rhythmic breathing of the forest. The dinosaurs are curled in the dry grass, their tails tucked around them. The insects are quiet in the bark of the trees. The rivers hum a low, gentle tune as they flow toward the distant sea. You are safe in this new world. The storm has passed. The earth is stable. The air is clean. The water is where it belongs, in the deep lakes, the high glaciers, and the veins of the trees. Close your eyes and feel the warmth of the dry earth beneath you. The rhythm of the 2 million years of rain is still there, deep in your heartbeat, a slow and steady pulse that connects you to the beginning of time. The clouds have gone, the stars are watching, the world is at peace. One final breath of the cool, pine-scented air, one final thought of the falling water. The rain has ended, the dream continues. Good night.